I'd like to call to order the RTA External and Stakeholder Relations and Advocacy Committee. Teresa, if you could call the roll, please.
Mayor Kumar,
Here.
Mayor Biassiata,
Here.
Ms. McPherson, and Ms. Welch.
Here.
You have 3 committee members present. You have a quorum.
Great. We have one item today. I believe it's just an update, not requiring any board action. Federal advocacy update from VSA, and presenting we have Jennifer LaTourette, President and COO of VSA.
Good morning. I know Jennifer and I are twins. I wanted to make sure that I gave her an introduction along with Mayor Kumar.
Fine.
Okay,
That's fine.
thank you.
That's fine.
We will go ahead. Good morning again. India Birdsong Terry, General Manager and CEO for RTA. I wanted to make sure that we had a little bit of an introduction because we have who we consider, I think, a friend in our advocacy world for public transit with us today. Typically, we have a lot of energy that goes into the legislative agenda for RTA. And VSA, or Vanscoic, you'll see the acronyms up on the screen here, is no stranger to advocacy, especially in the world of public transit, healthcare, education, and research. We do have Ms. Jennifer LaTourette, who serves as the President and COO for VSA, here today to give us an update in person for the climate, not just on a local but a national scale, especially when you're talking about the House and the Senate, and just the climate of actions being passed and legislative language that goes into supporting some of the initiatives that we have here in Ohio, particularly for RTA. This is just a little bit of a bio, but to give you a little bit of a bird's eye view, Jennifer, as I mentioned, represents a lot of clients on Capitol Hill, so she comes to us from Washington, D.C. We appreciate her bearing the weather last night and being able to get here for us on time this morning. It's really nice to be able to have her in person. As I mentioned, we did a lot of walking the pavement, pounding the pavement through the halls of Capitol Hill in D.C. She usually meets us there on site and takes us through some of those important meetings and hearings and coordinating those visits as we start to really talk to our legislature about what's going on with rail car, for example, or what's going on with workforce, and being able to really garner some of that support from our legislative body, especially as we continue to innovate here in Ohio. Before becoming a lobbyist, she worked for members of the House and Senate for nearly a decade and brings a wealth of experience covering issues on both sides, the R and the D, Republican and Democratic members of Congress. For that, she's consistently recognized as one of the Hill's top lobbyists, and we call her an advocate for us here, so we appreciate her. And just to give a little bit of a scope and contract overview for how we interact with VSA, remember that we do have 2 advocacy firms. I want you to remember that. VSA is kind of our friend on the Hill, so to speak, so they advocate for us at the federal level, in Washington, D.C. And we do have a secondary advocacy group that you'll be hearing from later on, earlier in the year, called Dickinson Wright. That particular representative will be Terrence O'Donnell, who will come to you in the next couple of months to give you a similar update, except on the local level for the state. So back to Jennifer, we had a contract that was initiated about 4 months before I joined RTA in 2019. And we immediately just went ahead and took the reins with that. Just a shout out to our leadership team, Mike Shipper, Natoya Walker-Minor, Dot Caver, and a few others, Jose Feliciano, I might be missing a couple others, Eric Johnson, that really worked together to kind of create the VSA friendship and professionalism that we've come to know today, and we've really honed that relationship to be able to manifest itself into many grants that have really supported a lot of our major programs. So it was a 3-year base with 2-year options for their contract with a not to exceed of nearly $500,000 over the span of time. Of course, we have not hit that limit yet. They are within the last year. We'll have about a year left, and we need to negotiate for a new one. So this is an opportune time to be able to have VSA explain today their value to RTA and also to the legislative market. I won't go through all of the details. We kind of already talked about the strategic collaboration, but with that, I would like to hand it over, and I'll go back to this slide here for Jennifer to give her update. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning. It's a pleasure to be with you today in person. I think this is the first time I've actually been in person since the very beginning of our agreement, so I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to talk to you about the partnership we've had over the years with GCRTA and the reason that it's important to have that sort of partnership and the success that we've shared. India talked a lot about my background. I'll just say, prior to becoming a lobbyist, I would say nobody grows up and comes to Washington saying they want to be a lobbyist. We all came there to do good on Capitol Hill, and I spent just under a decade up there, where I did have an unusual experience in that I worked for both House and Senate, which many people do, but I also worked for both Democrats and Republicans, which very few people do, and I'm not sure you could do today at all. But my background was across the public works committees in both the House and Senate, and members who served on those committees tended to be more bipartisan, and we always said there were no such thing as Democratic roads and Republican bridges, so it was a very bipartisan moment and issue area, which allowed me to do that. And I spent the last 5 years of my Hill career as a chief of staff in the Ohio delegation, which is where I really first came to work with all of you, defending transit funding cuts during Republican leadership years led by Tom DeLay, when we were looking at, the House was looking at ways to zero out funding across certain areas, and transit became a target, and we worked closely to rally the delegation to support an effort to guard against those sort of cuts. And I think, spoiler alert, we're going to see more of that this year, and we'll talk about that as one of the threats that we recently helped kill and will hopefully be doing again should it come up again, as we would expect. I think so. My experience with RTA is that you all have understood the value of advocacy for a long time. I think that's true of more entities that rely on public, federal funding for programmatic or other funding, or are subject to regulatory activity by the government. You saw a lot of folks who started to understand that more during the pandemic, when government started to impact everybody and everybody's business. You all were already well along in the relationship that we have in the partnership in pursuing opportunities, so we were in good shape to also guard against threats when they came, and they were unprecedented threats. Just fast forwarding, after my time on the Hill, I did, as India said, I came to Van Scoyoc Associates, where and have been there now 20 years. In the last 2 years, I took on the role as president and CEO of the company. I've kept very few legacy clients that I still work on as as India said, a boots on the ground lobbyist, and this relationship is one of those because of the place it has in my heart from my years back in Cleveland and in the delegation. I think, too, I would just say, just to give you a sense of our firm and why we're a little different than others, and it bleeds into how we work with you, so it's not a PR pitch, it's relevant. We are a little different from many of our competitors. We're one of the largest firms in DC, but we are what we call sort of a no stars place. We don't have former members of Congress or cabinet officials. We have senior level staff from across both House, Senate, and all of the agencies. And the mix and model of the firm then is a group of folks who are used to having to problem solve for their elected officials and find a way to yes, no matter what the hurdle is, across every issue area and committee of jurisdiction in the Hill. So people come to us and want to engage us in this relationship, not because they need us to access their own local delegation. You all have relationships, and most people do, with their area representatives, and you don't need us for door opening, which is a terrible term, but accurate, I guess, door opening across your own delegation. The question is the strategic advice of how to utilize those advocates, what are, because of the relationships across all of the committees of jurisdiction and all of the delegations within the House and Senate, as well as all of the agencies, understanding what's possible and probable at the beginning of a year, especially these last couple of years where it changes midstream and you have to readjust and reevaluate what the art of possible is, and where those efforts would best be directed and utilized in a way that will lead to success at the end of the year. We do all of the typical things that you would expect from an advocacy firm, in that we monitor legislation and monitor hearings and keep you apprised we do a bi-weekly conference call with your team, and keep you apprised on all things related to transit and transportation. But I think that's what I learned in law school is necessary but not sufficient. That's sort of the bare minimum of what an advocacy firm needs to be doing for you, especially if you are not in DC and we are attending meetings at APTA and other trade associations that speak to your issues. That's sort of the bare minimum of what's needed. The way that we work is we sit down with a client in the beginning of an arrangement, and then each year within that period of representing you, and do a deep dive, which is what we did in 2019 when we first came to meet with you, to understand not just sort of your wish list, but really the nuts and bolts of where you are, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish. Yes, a wish list, yes, concerns, threats, and vulnerabilities that you have, but then also a deeper dive of, okay, within the existing, especially in this case, within the existing federal programmatic funds that exist, where do they work for you? Where do they not work for you? So that with the opportunity to look a little closer and dig deeper into tweaking legislatively those funding streams in a way that would remove then the hurdles to accessing and using those dollars in the way most consistent with what you're trying to do. So I think when we go back to 2019, we sat down, we had the wish list, and this I should say, this allows us to prepare long-term, but then also on an annual basis, both sort of a proactive and a reactive agenda. So for instance, and it's changed over the years we've represented you, some years there have been what used to be referred to as earmarks and are now called congressionally directed spending. Some years there have not been. So in the years that there are, that is one piece of our federal agenda. What is your wish list? That's one you get to design completely yourselves, of what would you like. We work with you to ensure that it's eligible across the ever-changing criteria and restrictions that exist as Congress has had to write itself in the court of public opinion across earmark spending. That has changed each year as well. But we make sure that we work with you to understand what your priority is, what is the direct federal dollars to GCRTA that you would like to receive for which project, and how do we make that a piece of the federal agenda. We look at legislation and policy that's moving, and not just so that you stay informed within your issue sphere, but how are these things potentially really going to impact the federal dollars that ultimately flow to you in a way that's either favorable or unfavorable, that we need to find champions to adjust or advocate. And then, as I said, we look at, most significantly and maybe longest term, we look at where are those hurdles that don't allow you to do what you would otherwise want to do with dollars, and do we have the ability to find a way, again, having all served as professional staff on the Hill for many years, the folks with the pen writing some of these drafts of legislation that we brought to our bosses to try to accomplish their goals. We try to do the same for you, which is to say, okay, here's the problem you have, or here's the goal you'd like to accomplish. What can we do within the existing structure that exists to either create that opportunity, remove the barrier to access, or position you in a more favorable light if it has to be competitive dollars at the end of the year. And that's what we've done. So I think in the years that we've represented you, we have had tremendous success on purely on a dollars basis. We have had more than one multi-million-dollar, again, earmark. We have secured two $5 million rail car replacement earmarks, congressionally directed spending requests, both from the House and the Senate. in the years that those first returned to Capitol Hill as something that members were able to do. But I think the example, and I would say also we've been successful in working in partnership with you on some pretty robust grant funding that you successfully obtained along with us. There was a $15 million build grant. There was an $8 million all station access, the ADA rehab program. There was a $500,000 transportation planning grant. There's a $4 million roof project. In each of the years, we've had success across these areas, but I think the biggest one and the $130 million grant that was secured for the railcar replacement program is the one that really demonstrates why you want an advocate. I can talk to you about why you'd want us as advocates, but why you want an advocate and what can be done, because that's an example of dollars. When we sat down in that very first meeting, we talked about the frustration that you all had with the fact that in these robust pots of federal funding, you are always finding yourselves in a situation where New York, Chicago sucks up all the money, and we are competing for very little scraps that were left in these larger programs. There's nowhere near the number of dollars that are needed for all of these, and actually for any one of these transit agencies. And so to consistently be in a situation where you're having to compete with those sorts of large legacy systems was going to be in perpetuity a situation where the dollars were pretty limited. And so we talked about how we could use, in that first meeting with myself and Steve Palmer, we talked about the way in which we could, having been on, both of us served on conference committees on transportation reauthorization bills. We know what the programs look like, and we know how you can write rather than trying to create a new pot of money, which is very difficult on Capitol Hill in the current environment, how you can create either a carve out or a dedicated, a pot that has some dedicated criteria that would ensure that some of the dollars from a larger pot would come to you. And so we began to design a program with your team where we would ensure a set of dollars that was solely for mid-size aging fleets. And the mid-size, and I'm obviously distilling many, many months of working with other stakeholders and Congress in trying to figure out how this would first be possible. We then worked with your team a lot on an ongoing basis to identify and then bring to bear some of the needed partners that you would need in other similarly situated stakeholders, so other systems. It's going to be nearly impossible in any year, and especially in a Congress that we find ourselves in over the last couple of years, for any one system and any one member of Congress to redesign a whole program. You need to have buy-in across number of members of Congress on the right committee. We needed to identify for you all who those would be, who's willing to work with whom up there, who mattered, because not all members are created equal in terms of a certain legislative vehicle finding its way to all the way across the finish line. We didn't want something that was a press release that would feel good and we'd all look good that we got a bill dropped, but it wouldn't actually result in dollars at the end of the day. And so we were able to work with folks from Pittsburgh and folks from Buffalo and do calls and meetings with those teams, and then with their members of Congress and the committee staff across both the House and Senate committees of jurisdiction to make the case for why this was needed, why there's a real safety issue that mid-size aging systems were never going to be able to address if the current funding mechanism was left as it was. And there were obviously challenges with that because at the time, the chairs and the leadership of the House and Senate, the Speaker and the minority members, these were all coastal people for the most part at that time. not Mitch McConnell, but he wasn't a big transit supporter for us. But, we were making a case that was going to ultimately result in a potentially less favorable situation for people from New York and perhaps LA, and that was not lost on us, that our leadership of our both bodies was not going to be out championing this. We were going to need to build from the ground up and really make a safety argument. We ultimately did that. We were able to have that program included in the IIJA, which is where then you were all able to put in an application for the grant funding, which resulted in the $130 million that came to GCRTA. And this is an example, quite frankly, this is an example that I use in meetings in front of other clients and potential clients of why you want an advocate and what they can do if you embark on a longer-term relationship and you're not just trying to have the quick hit, the annual quick hit where that's all you're able to do. For us, the fun and the reward of the relationship is the ability to have, yes, done those quick hits so that all along you're proving the return on the investment for the system so that you all feel comfortable with trusting us on the bigger picture, but to have been able to work on something over those years that allowed us to really make an enormous and measurable change, and hopefully something that will provide benefits over the years. I think the other thing I would say, and I know I've left out some of the grants. I know we had a large NOLO grant that we worked in partnership with you to secure. That's again, things that I would say the grant identification, the working with your team, the getting feedback from the administration, from the agency about where you're better positioned, because there's opportunity cost in securing, in competing for one thing and not having the bandwidth then to do something else. We have to make smart choices at the beginning of the year or when these opportunities present themselves. We had some issue, even during the NOLO grant, I know we wanted to make sure the administration understood that if it was a political issue and we were only going to get one grant, that our big one was this rail car replacement grant, and we didn't want a situation where we were told later, well, we took care of you over here, not here. So there's obviously a lot of some of the political considerations as well. I think as you look ahead to the year ahead, I want to make sure I leave time for questions for you, but as you look to the year ahead, we're going to continue to be in an incredibly volatile environment on Capitol Hill. I think that's lost on no one. I think even as good as I think we are at what we do in our firm, I can tell you that nobody had Speaker Johnson on their bingo card at the beginning of this year in my office. And so the need, I mean, I'm very grateful to be at a place that is sort of passionately bipartisan, bicameral, with tentacles across all of the states. We have clients in every state, and we have folks who have worked in every state. And I would not want to be in the position where I'm scrambling to fill gaps in a year like this, where it would then change on you every couple of months. It's an extremely volatile environment. Ohio is going to be volatile. When I was up there, it was volatile because we were the center of the universe in terms of the political, the big picture every 4 years. It's going to be volatile because you've got change this year and coming in terms of retirements, and that always pulls even though they may not be the two members who've announced their retirements or not from your area. It does, the change pulls a delegation and the dynamics of a delegation and who can advocate for what and in what way. It does impact the larger. We've already seen in the last couple of weeks, it may now be a month, but House Republicans' effort to pass a transportation bill again led to an effort to drastically cut transit funding. We mobilized our delegation in a day when those threats came out, and I think again where an advocate is helpful is to be able to understand, okay, leadership on the Republican side of the House is working with a 4-seat majority. It was then 4, it's now 3 again, but 3-seat majority or 4-seat majority This is we're not going to win this in the Rules Committee because they've already given too much of that power to some of the more conservatives who are not opposed to cutting transit funding. But this is how we can demonstrate without embarrassing leadership such that they view us unfavorably. We can demonstrate that they don't have the votes to pass this bill. And not all members are created equal in that conversation either. The House leadership has had this weekly meeting with what they refer to as the 5 families and representatives across the 5 factions of the Republican conference. And so having certain members weigh in a different way on behalf of the folks who stand behind them. So having a Dave Joyce be willing to say to leadership in that weekly meeting, not just on behalf of himself, but on the coalition that he represents within the Congress, that you're not going to have the votes, pulled that back from even a vote on the House floor, which is the best of all outcomes. We're going to see things like that continue. We're working on under a continuing resolution right now, which is keeping things held together, but it's held together with bubble gum and some tape. These factions are getting restless, and I think the new speaker has had a brief honeymoon period, but January is going to be rough when some of these bills come due again, and we are going to face again risks of shutdown, which impact you in various ways, as not just with respect to what happens to the programmatic funding that you receive, but who's there in the agency for us to deal with across some of the issues that we have in the release of the funding that we've been able to secure. Those things are going to continue into the new year. We do still have an enormous champion in Senator Brown, who thankfully will be right where he is through the balance of the year. And he and his team are phenomenal and supporters of all that we're trying to accomplish here. I will just say India has been a phenomenal leader and has allowed us to also work with you all on ways to elevate the profile of RTA in Washington, and I would list among the successes on the federal level over the past year, India coming to DC to testify in front of the Senate Banking Committee as one of 3 people to speak about the state of transit at that time. Those things only helped us as we went to work with that same team of Senator Brown's on the release of funding across some of these pieces like the railcar replacement funding.
Jennifer, if I could, I want to make sure that we give enough time for the board members to ask a few questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, I would just end with one thing. I would say you have a very new Congress. You have, I was doing the math last night when I was waiting for this plane, and you have 206 members of Congress who have been there fewer than 5 years. That's not the Congress I've worked in. It's a very different Congress, and you have those factions that I spoke about, so you don't anymore have a red team message and a blue team message. You have about 15 messages that have to be delivered across all those gradations of color from red to blue with very little purple. And so I think, again, working in partnership with an advocate, whoever that might be, a federal advocate who can at best advise and work as an extension of your team to secure those priorities that you have and help you translate where necessary and educate. And I would just end with, I think that the story about DC is going to be ugly and unpleasant for a while. But there really are opportunities embedded in that too. When you have 200 folks who are new, they are gettable, and they are able to be brought along in a conversation of why transit is important for any number of reasons. And so I would just encourage you all to keep doing that and doing what you're doing and to touting your successes, because it's important for the country too. You have the ability to move the Congress more in the right place on some of these issues by educating them about what you are doing. And again, I thank you for the opportunity to serve as your partner there in DC.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions from the committee or board members? Any final comments?
Just wanted to say thanks again, Jennifer, for giving us kind of the landscape. I will say I was just kind of taking a couple notes. The importance of having a shepherd through the halls of Congress is absolutely imperative to our success, to be able to get in some of those doors that might take a little longer for a call from Cleveland. We're not there every day, and so being able to rely on an advocate, excuse me, such as VSA, to say, hey, we need to meet in 2 months with no less than 15 members of Congress, and is not an easy thing to do. And they are very helpful in getting us into some of those rooms, excuse me, and even while we're sitting in those rooms, to be able to have that friendly face that they see all the time and layer on to our education for what we're doing here. I will say really quickly that when I got here, we had a lot of educating to do. We were a known quantity within the industry and within the nation, but as Jennifer mentioned, we're not Chicago, we're not LA, we're not New York, and sometimes that middle ground for transportation, that size gets lost in translation, and people only know what we've done in the past. So being able to have the opportunity to educate members of our delegation has been instrumental, and now we can successfully say, I think we can pick up the phone through VSA. And she said it really fast, but I want to make sure that we think about this, being able to mobilize the delegation in one day.
It was one day.
That was huge.
It was 4 hours, actually.
To be able to push through in support or against, actually, legislation.
And I'll just give you an example on that, and this is not a knock on any trade association, so I won't name them. I mean, trade associations, we work, obviously, if you're in DC, one of the things you do is work in partnership with the major trade associations on everything, so APTA, NACO, any of them. But the problem with trade associations is they're typically inherently conflicted on issues because they represent so many folks. So they have the bigs and the littles and the the East Coast and the middle of the country, and it makes it hard for them to, on many issues, to advocate. And you have to think about how to strategically use them where they can carry your water and where you need to do it yourself. That's a good example of something I think they got complete. A trade association who sounded the alarm on that too got a lot of it right. But I would argue that the advice that was given of the way to mobilize, we didn't agree with, and if we had followed that, we would have been reaching people 2 days after the vote had happened. And so the ability, and that's not because we're brilliant, that's because we were those staffers who we were then trying to reach on that day. I mean, we know what they will and won't see. I mean, it's sort of in my day, not to age myself more, but when people did the fax campaign, I know that probably doesn't exist anymore, but that was not a way to reach me on anything time sensitive. That was something our staff assistant at the front desk would collect and report on to me at the end of the week. We got X number of this, X number. That's not going to hit some. So understanding sort of the cadence of an office and if you need someone quickly and why you can't go to that well when you don't need them quickly, because you need them to trust you, to pay attention to you on the day that something really is like a time sensitive, we need you right now. So I think that would be an example where the messaging was actually perfect and it was right. The advice that was being given more broadly, I think, was very good advice about how to message, but not the mechanics of it, and it would have been sort of a little too late.
Great. Well, thank you again for coming in and providing that update. I found it very helpful. I know we have some new board members, so the overview and update on the climate in DC is always appreciated.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
Now call to order the Committee of the RTA Organizational Service and Performance Monitoring at 9:37. Roll call, please.
Mayor Biassiata.
Here.
Mayor Kumar.
Here.
Mr. Sleesman.
Here.
Mayor Weiss.
Here.
And Ms. Welch.
Here.
You have 5 committee members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. We have 3 agenda items today. One will be a contract for our transit and shelter advertising sales. The second item will be for the purchase of new tablets for our non-revenue vehicles. And the last is our new software for computer-aided dispatch and automated vehicle locator. First up will be our contract proposal for transit and shelter advertising sales. And we have two presenters today, Sharon Jenkins, Director of Marketing, and Ashley Bober, Contract Administrator 2. Floor is yours.
Good morning, Committee Chair Biassiata, committee members and members of the board. I am Sharon Jenkins. I am the Director of Marketing, and I serve as a project manager for the transit and shelter advertising sales. So I will introduce our program. GCRTA is in the final year of two separate advertising sales contracts for transit and shelter, which both expire at the end of this month, December 31, 2023. The contractor sells, produces, installs, and removes advertising on GCRTA assets, shelters in Cleveland, and vehicles to include coaches and rail cars. So this request for proposal package was prepared to combine both the transit vehicle and shelter, which includes rail stations and the Ron-Tober Walkway contracts. Another change, in addition to combining the two existing contracts, is the introduction of an advertising policy and standards. So I'll just review this part. And these enable GCRTA to consistently manage advertising to reflect mission and public image. So the advertising policy was adopted by the Board of Trustees June 27, 2023, followed closely by the advertising standards, which define the content of advertising permitted on our assets, and that was made effective by GM Birdsong Terry, June 30th, 2023. The request for proposal package for transit and shelter advertising sales contained the updated advertising standards, and the contractor is responsible for compliance. So the inventory of assets available for the sale and display of advertising content includes, for transit, which is our vehicles, 218 coaches, and removed from that are approximately 70 vehicles to include trolleys and vehicles that are under naming rights contracts, to include the Cleveland State University line, the Health line, and the Metro Health line. We have approximately 47 rail cars to include 32 heavy rail vehicles, which is our red line, and 15 light rail vehicles, which is our green and blue line vehicles. There are additionally approximately 80 GCRTA-owned paratransit vehicles available on the inventory for advertising sales. For shelters, there are approximately 500 to 600 shelters within city limits, City of Cleveland, and that is of the total 644 that exist in city limits as of August. There are exemptions similarly to vehicles for branded shelters along the CSU line, the Health line, and the Metro Health line. Additionally, in our shelter portion, we include all rail stations, excluding the Tri-C Campus District on the red line, again, a naming rights contract, and the Ron-Tober Walkway, which connects Tower City to Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. This slide displays some examples of what the advertising looks like on our assets. So there's on and in vehicles and shelters. This is the scope of services. This program is designed to maximize revenue opportunities related to the sale of advertising in and on vehicles, shelters, and select facilities. The advertising media, as previously displayed, includes static art, which is primarily vinyl graphics applied directly to vehicles and shelters. And we also seek to explore opportunities for additional improved and/or creative displays. Again, this program, we seek to reinforce the mission of the authority of connecting the community. So the advertising program and the value-added services are designed to align with the mission. As we mentioned, the advertising policy and standards are put in place to help guide that, and also to leverage the advertising program to maximize benefit to the authority and the community. The contractor expectations are to be a committed partner to GCRTA, to work with us, be transparent, have open communication, cooperation and collaboration, and have dedicated account manager and sales staff to work on our account. And the goal is to have a win-win-win situation to include riders and the public, along with GCRTA and the contractor.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor Biassiata, members of the committee, and members of the board. My name is Ashley Bober. I am the contract administrator for this contract, and I have been administering this contract for the authority for 11 years. Before I begin, I do want to clarify that this is a revenue-generating contract, which means there are no costs associated with this contract for the authority. The request for proposal, or the RFP, was issued on July 21st, 2023. It was accessed on our website by 14 interested parties, and 3 firms proposed. The evaluation panel was a group of multidisciplinary stakeholders with unique perspectives that were either directly or indirectly affected by this project. So we had representatives from the administration and external affairs, marketing, as Ms. Jenkins and her staff will be managing this project, the Office of Management and Budget. This representative was crucial in the financial analytics of the firm. Operations, service management, we had representatives from service planning, which they are responsible for the shelter locations and the transit route planning. So of course they were important. We also had representatives in service management from those in the shelter shop. Those individuals will be working directly with the recommended firm's operations team. We also included district management. This is especially important because the district management are the ones that are working with the operations teams at the districts to get our buses wrapped. And then lastly, procurement. That is myself. I am merely the facilitator of this process. The evaluation criteria used to evaluate the proposals was the revenue share plan, objectively measured results achieved on similar contracts, the marketing strategy, which includes the presentation of viable marketing plans, vendor product offerings. This includes creative variety of advertising opportunities, and lastly, qualifications and relevant experience. Okay. The recommended firm is HFT Management Incorporated, doing business as Gateway Outdoor Advertising. They are headquartered in New Jersey with 17 regional offices throughout the country. There was a 0% DBE goal assigned by the Office of Business Development, and they do not assign goals to revenue-generating contracts in general. HFT Management Incorporated, doing business as Gateway Outdoor Advertising. They were established in 1937 and acquired by the current owner and president over 40 years ago. It's a family-owned business that's focused solely on transit advertising markets. They previously contracted with the authority from 1992 to 1996, wherein revenues increased from $1,100,000 to $2,240,000 by 1996. Continuing, in addition to a dedicated national sales team, Gateway will establish a Cleveland-based office and hire locally to include a market manager, an office manager, 2 local sales staff, and an operations team. The operations team consists of the individuals who will be installing the advertisements, maintaining the advertisements, and repairing the advertisements. In addition, there'll be the quality assurance and the quality control as well. And of course, Gateway demonstrated to us the commitment to innovation, technology, and most importantly, transparency. Gateway Outdoor Advertising will offer discounted rates to nonprofit organizations, public service agencies, community agencies, and minority businesses to promote brand awareness and growth. All sales staff will be members of local business organizations and attend outreach events on a regular basis to promote the benefits of brand advertising on the authority's assets. I think what's important to understand here is the dedication to the community that they have demonstrated to us. Gateway will provide $100,000 annually in media trade to use at the authority's discretion. That means that the authority can advertise up to $100,000, we call it a production credit, on any avenue, TV, radio, print, on our assets. We get $100,000 annually, so the life of the contract, that is a $700,000 value in advertisements for the authority. And Gateway Outdoor will pay a minimum annual guarantee to the authority for each contract year, with a 65% revenue share for any revenue exceeding the minimum annual guarantee. So once I go to the next slide, I hope you all understand this a little better. So the minimum annual guarantee is guaranteed to the authority every year. It's received in a check in 12 equal installments, and it is sent directly to our accounting department. And as you can see, 2024 to 2030, they have guaranteed up to $11,600,000. So this is cash that is guaranteed to the authority. So Mayor Biassiata, you asked a wonderful question when we talked yesterday morning, and that's how does this firm make money if they're giving us $11,600,000? So the easiest way to say it is Gateway does not make money unless we make money. So when Gateway is establishing their Cleveland-based office with over 7 staff, they are incurring those costs at their expense. Gateway does not start making money until they have reached the minimum annual guarantee in sales. So they are incentivized to work very, very hard to exceed the minimum annual guarantee if they are to be profitable. And then once they exceed that minimum annual guarantee, the authority gets 65% of anything sold over the minimum annual guarantee. Okay, other clients include the Delaware Area Rapid Transit, Ocean City Transportation, the Hillsborough Regional Transit Authority, the Nassau County Bus System, the Rochester Genesee Regional Transit Authority, and the City of Pittsburgh. This is just a map demonstrating their markets. Gateway currently has 35 transit and shelter advertising contracts in 11 states. So the staff requests that the Organizational Services and Performance Monitoring Committee recommend an award of a revenue-generating contract to HFT Management Incorporated, doing business as Gateway Outdoor Advertising, to provide transit and shelter advertising sales for a period of 5 years with 2 one-year options for renewal. Before we move on to questions, I would like to add to the board that since, as I presented earlier, Gateway lost the contract with the authority in 1996. And Gateway has proposed on every contract solicitation in regards to advertising ever since. So they have been trying to do business with us since 1996. And here we are, 27 years later. Gateway swung for the fences and they knocked it out of the park. So I would like to introduce Mr. Persistence himself, Mr. Craig Hurd, who's the owner and president of Gateway. Craig?
You can go ahead, Craig. He is online. He just unmuted himself.
Okay.
Mr. Hurd, can you hear us?
Are you muted, Craig?
No, he took the mute off.
Well, while we're working on that, I'd like to go to my board here, my committee, and ask if they have any questions for either Ms. Jenkins or Ms. Bober at this time. Well, when I was researching this is the one thing I wanted to point out. You know, anything that comes to the board, we're trustees, and what I looked at was the risk benefit here. Bringing the two, transit and shelter, together brings a consistency. The contract, I'm more of a finance person. From risk reward there, I looked at what kind of advertising revenue we brought in from these assets historically, and if you look back the last couple of years, the average is around 1.2. That's an approximation. 1.2 million. So the floor of, we're guaranteed 1.2 for 2024 in advertising revenue from these assets. We can do no worse than be flat to what we've historically done over the last couple of years. And the agency is heavily incented because they don't get paid until we get over the 1.2. So from that standpoint, I thought the risk reward was good and risk minimal. So I think we got our technical difficulty clarified, and we'll go to our online presenter.
Hello, Craig, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to reset.
Craig?
If you can hear us, this is India Birdsong Terry, GM. You've got a bit of an echo. Perhaps turn your volume down. If we can't
Well,
get
you
him
know
through.
what, if we have do we have any questions from the board for the CEO of Gateway Outdoor Advertising?
I go.
Hearing none, I think we're good to move on.
Turn the volume up. Where?
So let's mute that, please, and we're going to move on with our agenda, but I'm going to make a motion to, oh, sorry, yeah, absolutely. I looked the wrong way. I apologize.
There we go. That's all right. I switched to another computer.
Okay,
that's
Craig, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
would you
have
like
him
me to
be
continue?
available for questions if there are any.
Okay, we're going to take questions from the committee, so just hold tight.
Floor is yours.
Okay, fine.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One is under our current contract, is that also a period of 5 years? Is this kind of a normal time frame for this type of contract?
So our current contract is with Lamar Transit LLC. So we initially solicited for a 5-year contract. The authority made the decision to extend that revenue-generating contract 2 additional years to research the advertising guidelines, advertising standards, and ensure that they're vetted by our legal department thoroughly.
Thank you. In terms of the $100,000 of advertising collateral RTA has at its disposal, should the agency want to do more or have additional content that we would like to promote, is that an opportunity under this contract? What happens if we hit that $100,000? And do you have any sense of like what order of magnitude of advertising that represents?
I can jump in on that. So in the last 2.5 years since I have been here, we have typically spent about $40,000 with Lamar. So we, in addition to our production credit, at that point, an investment from my operating budget covers the cost of any additional. So with the opportunity for $100,000 that is offered inside of this potential contract, it gives us a greater magnitude to get our messages out. So you may see, as over the last this year, you probably saw our Let's Go Together buses out there. You've also saw some of the buses that we've also partnered with other grants that we have, Baby on Board, those types of things, same things with our shelters. So it gives us an opportunity because this contractor is very much in line with our mission of really around community focus to get things out there that we care about. We have also built into this because we know that a conversation that continues to come up is around our community development corporations as they want a message in and around their communities. So once this contract is approved and subsequently we meet with the contractor, we will work to make sure that in low revenue generating areas where the CDCs are, there's opportunities for those community development corporations to advertise in those spaces, and we'll work with them on those unutilizing the production credit.
I do want to add that our current production credit is $15,000 per year.
Yeah.
So going to $100,000 is a significant increase for the authority.
Thank you. My final question is around perhaps the advertising standards. I know I was on the board when we passed the policy around content. At that time, we talked a little bit about the more technical specs of the advertising, specifically the ones that cover windows on buses and shelters and the interest in visibility, especially now that we're in dark moments in the morning and the evenings. It is sometimes very difficult to see outside of the buses to know where you are in terms of accessing your stop, where to get off. Are those types of specs included in the standards that are referred to, or is that a separate policy that we have? And how is that integrated into this contract in terms of our ability to revisit that and refine it for a better rider experience?
Thank you. It is not a part of the advertising standards, which addresses content, the advertising policy and standards. That's content of advertising on assets. This policy will incorporate that. It is the technical aspect is an operation, so it is not written in the scope or formatted for the contractor, but we will work with the contractor. Every transit agency has different specs, and we will be working with safety and transit police to develop ours, agency authority-wide, to make sure we are consistent, and we will work with the new contractor to make sure that we address that and we are consistent.
Thank you. Thank you. In addition to working with safety, I'd also like the agency to just experience that user perspective from inside the vehicles. I think that's a really important piece that we're not quite right on yet. Thank you.
If I can interject for just one moment. So we anticipated the ask, which is great. We also have Steve Paganoff, who is in our audience, or peanut gallery, so to speak, for our team. And if needed, we can also speak offline to you a little bit about what we currently have in place and the process going forward. We have, as an agency, agreed to be able to create an SOP of sorts for internal review of that window, kind of see-through. And we'll be working, as Sharon said, with transit police and safety and planning department to be able to formalize that. That's also been communicating, correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley, with the vendor already.
Right. During the interview process, we had extensive conversations regarding this issue. We know it is an issue, and the vendor committed to us to work with us moving forward.
It will be, thank you. It will be also included in the kickoff meeting.
Yes.
And so we'll have safety present for that as well. And so my mandate to the team, and they agreed to be able to have that SOP ready within 45 days prior to the kickoff so that we go ahead and include it. Right now we have a kind of shelter standard that encompasses it on a case-by-case basis, but the ask is to have it formalized. And then I think it would be a great kind of look-see, so to speak, to maybe have the CAC be able to task with some of that for input to be able to make sure that we're both able to effectuate the sales, but also make sure that people have a safe ride. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions, Ms. Mover? Very good questions. You're good with that approach. Anyone else?
Not so much a question, but two quick comments. First is to just echo that conversation that just happened. The bus wraps need to be more transparent. And then secondly, to applaud, I don't know what combination of either the contractor or the writers of the RFP, but I really like the design of this, both the community aspect and then the revenue sharing. I think this was well done. So congrats.
Thank you for your comments. That sounds good. I'm going to move to approve this contract out of committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Biassiata.
Yes.
Mayor Kumar.
Yes.
Mr. Sleesman.
Yes.
Mayor Weiss.
Yes.
And Ms. Welch.
Yes.
You have 5 ayes and none opposed.
Thank you both. We're going to move on to our second topic for my committee, and it is for the...
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to thank the board. I'm sorry we had sound problems, but doing this for 40 years, it's been a pleasure to be able to come back to Cleveland and have the award and proceed to outperform the previous contractors, but more importantly, to do the right thing in Cleveland, because we'll be in your living room. And thank you again for the recommendation.
Well, thank you for your partnership. We look forward to working with Gateway Outdoor Advertising. We're going to move on to a procurement request for ruggedized tablets for our non-revenue vehicles. We'll have 3 presenters, Mike Lively, Julie Schultz, and Anne Marie Prebish. Floor is yours.
Good morning, Mayor Biassiata, members of the committee and board. My name is Julie Schultz. I'm the ITS manager for onboard technology. This procurement is for ruggedized tablets for our non-revenue vehicles. First off, our transit police. They require computers to communicate with their dispatch office, retrieve vital information, locate vehicles, and process accurate field reports. Additional support departments also require in-vehicle computers as well. Service quality field supervisors manage service from the street to ensure schedules and procedures are adhered to. Our mobile mechanics meet coaches on the road to diagnose mechanical issues and make minor repairs, as well as our electronic repair department. They also make roadside repairs to items such as fare boxes. Each of these departments play a vital role in ensuring our vehicles run safely, equipment is functioning properly, and keep our service running on schedule. Currently, the computers installed in these vehicles have several issues. They are beyond their useful life and/or are unsupported. Some of our computers are not rated for rugged mobile usage. They are just standard laptops that are meant to be used at a desk, so they are receiving more wear and tear than the manufacturer intended, which means they have repetitive hardware failures and require recurring maintenance from our IT staff. With the cutting-edge technology available to our transit police, we are often limited in what hardware and software can be incorporated into the vehicles due to system limitations. Our support departments are also limited with these same pieces of equipment. Our proposed solution will replace these older devices with new ruggedized tablets. These are rated with a high durability certification for mobile usage in the field. They have improved software and hardware integration, such as barcode scanners for driver's licenses for our transit police, adequate storage capability between shared users. These devices are tablets with cellular capability to provide flexibility to be removed from the vehicles for more accurate field reporting. Today, the laptops are fixed inside the vehicles. So, for example, our service quality supervisors could be called to an incident or an accident, and they have to exit the vehicle with a clipboard and a digital camera. So these new tablets would give them the ability to take it out of the vehicle safely and be able to enter their reports more accurately directly into our software. This chart is a breakdown of the quantity and pricing for the parts associated with this procurement. There's two models of tablets and keyboards chosen to best meet the departmental needs and the vehicle configurations. One set is for transit police and the other is for the support departments. We have also included printers for our transit police vehicles as well as docking stations and the installation equipment. I'll turn it over to Anne Marie.
Good morning. My name is Anne Marie Prebish, and I am the contract administrator for this procurement. The invitation for bid, or IFB, was issued September 10th, 2023. It was accessed on the GC RTA website by 41 interested parties. 6 firms submitted bids. 2 bids were determined to be responsive. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder was Baycom Inc. They are located in Green Bay, Wisconsin. There was a 0% DBE participation goal assigned to this project. The staff requests that the Organizational Services and Performance Monitoring Committee recommend award to Baycom Inc. to provide ruggedized tablets for non-revenue vehicles. The price is in an amount not to exceed $263,444.40, which is 24.73% below the project estimate. That concludes the presentation. We're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the committee? Any questions? Yeah, this is, I think it's important to give our employees good equipment. These move to the tablets, consistent with what I'm seeing in cities and other governmental organizations. They're designed to be portable, and the computer-aided dispatch is an important piece of software, and they need good hardware to get our most value out of that system. So, hearing no questions, I move to approve this expenditure. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mayor Biassiata?
Yes.
Mayor Kumar?
Yes.
Mr. Sleesman?
Yes.
Mayor Weiss?
Yes.
And Ms. Welch?
Yes.
You have 5 ayes and none opposed.
Thank you. Motion's carried. Appreciate your work on this. We're going to move on to the third agenda item, which is another procurement request, and it's actually for the software that I was just speaking of that'll be ran on these tablets. So the procurement request is for computer-aided dispatch and automated vehicle software. It's a maintenance and support contract for a period of 5 years, and we have Julie's back to present, as well as Sean Becker. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning again. This procurement is with Vantis, who has been our CAD AVL provider for almost 20 years. This maintenance and support agreement guarantees necessary software and hardware support to ensure our systems are running properly. It includes routine system upgrades, on-site vendor training for administrators and end users, gives us access to timely customer support, and also consists of software patches throughout the year. This year, we have consolidated our service agreements with Vantis and each of their software programs and hardware they support all into one agreement for 5 years. The largest system is OnRoute, previously Transit Master. This is our CAD AVL software. This system connects the onboard computer with our dispatch system. Service Quality utilizes this software to communicate with the operators while on the road, locate vehicles, manage service, and process incident reports. The onboard hardware for this system includes the IVLU computer, the MDT or operator interface, and automated passenger counters. This is a screenshot of our OnRoute software, our CAD AVL system. Our dispatchers can view the queue on the left that has incoming messages and information from the vehicles. On the right, they can locate them on a map in real time. Our dispatchers also process other functions within OnRoute, such as review schedules, vehicle data, and input route detours. Some of the other Vantis software applications included in this agreement are Vehicle Intelligence, which is our telematics software. This provides real-time mechanical data from our buses directly to our support staff at the garages. Device Management is a newer software application that provides remote management of the CAD AVL's computer. This allows system administrators to review the actual files and data on the vehicle while it's in service. If there's any issues or adjustments that need to be made, previously we had to wait for the vehicles to pull into the garage at night. Now they can be updated on the road in real time. Vantis also supports operator turn-by-turn navigation, which is a great resource for our newer staff and for reroutes. Another function from Vantis software is providing our GTFS feed, which gives real-time tracking vehicle information on Transit app to our passengers. This is a screenshot of Vehicle Intelligence, our telematics software. Equipment managers have the ability to view live mechanical data from the vehicles, create reports, and customize threshold warnings. This screenshot is of our device management dashboard that allows the software administrators to view and maintain files on the vehicle's onboard computer. We can review current route files, announcements, system configurations, and deploy new files from this software. The image on the left is from an example of our MDT operator interface for turn-by-turn navigation. Again, this includes all of the routes in our system, every direction, pattern, and if there's reroutes, they get sent through this as well. And then the image on the right is from Transit app. Our GTFS real-time feed goes through there to provide accurate real-time information for the passengers. And I'll pass it over to Sean.
Thanks, Julie. Good morning, Mayor Biassiata, committee members, and members of the board. I'm Sean Becker, and I'm a program contract manager in procurement, and I've historically been responsible for this maintenance and support agreement. So this is a purchase that is exempt from competition with Trapeze Software Group, Inc., doing business as Vantis, and per revised code 306.43H3, competitive procedures are not required when the expenditures for a renewal or renegotiation of a lease or license for telecommunications or electronic data processing equipment, services, or systems, or for the upgrade of such equipment, services, or systems, or for the maintenance thereof as supplied by the original source or its successors or assigns. Procurement requested a proposal on November 16th. We received that proposal on November 28th. There was a 0% DBE goal assigned to this project due to the proprietary nature of the software. And the proposal was reviewed by representatives from IT and the procurement department. Vantis's experience. They're pioneers in providing intelligent transportation systems, and they've been serving transit for over 30 years. They have over 40 offices worldwide, and they support over 135 large transit agencies across North America. In addition to that, they serve 1/3 of the top 100 fleets in North America in the CAD AVL arena. Vantis's transit clients: GCRTA, Central Ohio Transit Authority, Capital Area Transit Authority, Southwest Ohio Regional Transit Authority, Dallas Area Rapid Transit, Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, Maryland Transit Authority, Nashville Metropolitan Transit Authority, and Pace Suburban Bus, among many others. And this chart shows kind of a breakdown of the year-over-year annual maintenance and support costs. So starting with $825,000 up to $1 million, for a total of $4,559,274. And this pricing is in line, actually below what we were expecting to pay. And the recommendation: staff requests that the Organizational Services and Performance Monitoring Committee recommend to the Board of Trustees the award for computer-aided dispatch and automated vehicle locator maintenance and support services to Trapeze Software Group, Inc., doing business as Vantis, in a negotiated contract amount not to exceed $4,559,274 for a 5-year period. And this amount is approximately 13% below the independent cost estimate. So as I mentioned, we were actually anticipating a much higher price. So we were able to negotiate that. And at this time, we'll be happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Yeah, thank you. Why the estimate is, we came in well below the estimate. It's my understanding this contract is a little more expensive than what we've historically paid. Can you elaborate on what that incremental cost is and what we're getting for that cost?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently, our current year, we're paying approximately $735,000. If you look back to that chart, the first year is going to be $825,000. However, that amount is accounted for by 2 additional applications: the vehicle intelligence as well as the device management. So no longer do we have to have a bus pull into the actual garage to see that the engine's running hot or it needs an oil change or something. We can actually see and predict that on the road and pull that vehicle in before there's an actual breakdown. So those 2 applications, along with the device management that can support and diagnose things while a vehicle is actually on the road, are pivotal to our business practice and our operation. And back in 2018, 2019, when we negotiated the radio replacement project, where we actually replaced all that equipment on all of our buses and trains, I would say the vehicle intelligence was provided in that contract, but future years were provided at around $180,000 at that time. So if you can see, going from $735,000 to $825,000 is much less than that, even that $180,000 that we would pay for just that one application. So you can think of it as bundling, I guess, putting all these agreements in together. So.
Thank you. I think that's good value for the $90,000 vehicle maintenance and the device detection. Getting ahead of that should prevent greater expenses down the road. The faster you can diagnose a mechanical problem, quicker we can address it, and more times than not, it leads to saving money because it doesn't become a bigger problem.
Absolutely.
So, any questions from my committee or the board on this acquisition? Who am I missing? Mayor, fire away.
Just a quick question on the math, so you help me out here. What's the annual increase on this? Or does
5%.
It's a 5%?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was actually negotiated down to 5% too. So that saved about an additional $94,000 over the term of the contract. So.
Okay, thanks.
Very good question. Any further?
No question, just a quick comment. This is a great opportunity for the authority. I appreciate the insight and the summary. I think that you hit it spot on. This is a great opportunity for us to kind of innovate. So I appreciate the board support.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any new business for this committee at this time? Fantastic. I'm going to move to adjourn at 10:17. Do I have a second?
Second. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. We're out of committee at 10:17.
Thank you, by the way, for the presentation prior to the board meeting today. It was helpful. Thank you.
I now want to call to order the Operational Planning and Infrastructure Committee meeting at 10:17 a.m. Teresa, roll call.
Ms. Welch,
Present.
Mayor Kumar,
Present.
Mr. Love, and Mr. Sleesman.
Present.
You have 3 committee members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Today we're going to have a budget presentation proposing the FY 2024 operating budget, and then after that we're going to move out of that and then go into a public hearing. But before we do that, we have a presentation from Ms. Kay Satula, Director of the Office of Management and Budget. You have the floor. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Chair Welsh, members of the committee, and members of the board. My name is Kay Satula. I'm the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, and today I will be presenting the 2024 proposed budget. In May, we presented the 2024 Capital Improvement Plan, which was adopted by the board. We submit this earlier in the year in order to provide our capital needs to NOACA, ODOT, and FTA for their 2024 fiscal years. In July, we presented the 2024 tax budget, which was adopted by the board on July 25th. In August, we began the fiscal year 2024 budget development. We presented the 2024 budget in November and also held a public hearing. Today, we are briefly presenting the 2024 budget. We'll hold a second public hearing, and after that, we will recommend the committee present the proposed 2024 budget to the full board for adoption. Although the economy is growing, interest rates, inflation, and supply chain issues are still providing challenges. Ridership and passenger fare revenues are projected to increase about 2%. Interest rates are expected to remain between 4.2% and 5% in 2024. Inflation is expected to decrease, as are interest rates. Currently, the authority has received an average yield of 4.2% on its investments. Wage increases, which are largely contractual, are budgeted at 4% across the board. The revenues for the 2024 budget total $335.4 million, of which the largest 3 categories are sales and use tax at 80%, passenger fares at 8.1%, and reimbursed expenditures at 1.5%. We are budgeting a transfer of $30 million from the Revenue Stabilization Fund, a component of the Reserve Fund, to offset lower passenger fare revenue. These transfers represent 8.9% of total budget revenues. Passenger fares are budgeted at $27.1 million, 2% above 2023 estimates. Advertising, concessions, and investment income are budgeted at $3.5 million. For the non-operating revenues, sales and use tax is budgeted at $268.3 million, a 2% increase from 2023 actuals. Reimbursed expenditures includes $1 million for preventive maintenance or PM reimbursements and $4 million for other reimbursements, including fuel tax, force account labor, and other miscellaneous reimbursements. We are keeping the PM reimbursement low at $1 million so we can support the unfunded and underfunded capital projects. Other revenue includes various miscellaneous receipts from contractors, hospitalization, claims, reimbursements, rent, and salvage sales. This is budgeted at $1.5 million. We are budgeting a $30 million transfer from the reserve fund revenue stabilization to maintain the 1 month ending balance in 2024. We will continue to monitor revenues and expenses throughout the year to determine how much of that transfer will actually be needed. Total revenues budgeted for 2024 are $335.4 million. For 2023, we started with 2,397 full-time equivalent positions, or FTEs. For 2024, we are budgeting 2,423 FTEs, an increase of 26 positions based on new initiatives and business needs. These positions include 6 transit ambassador positions, 14 bus mechanic apprenticeship positions, 2 human resource business partners, 2 financial analysts, a training coordinator, and a paratransit operator. Total expenditures for the 2024 budget is $333.8 million, which includes $293.6 million for operating expenditures and $40.2 million for transfers to other funds. Salaries and overtime are budgeted at $164.3 million, and payroll taxes and fringes are budgeted at $57.6 million. Total payroll is approximately 66.4% of RTA's general fund expenditures. The Energy Price Risk Management Program has continued to stabilize the cost of fuel, specifically diesel and CNG. The authority's diesel fuel usage has decreased, and compressed natural gas usage has increased as we add more CNG buses into service and retire older diesel vehicles. Fuel and utilities is budgeted at $13.6 million. Inventory is budgeted at $13 million, or 4% of general fund expenditures. The supply chain management section has helped the authority to maintain predictive maintenance repairs on its fleets and carry out major purchases for supplies and equipment. The main drivers of the services and materials category are services and maintenance contracts, equipment, and other miscellaneous supplies. This category is budgeted at $25.9 million, or 8% of all expenditures. Purchase transportation ADA is projected at $11.5 million. New contracts were negotiated in 2023. Transfers to other funds are budgeted at $40.2 million. These transfers are for specific set-asides for bond retirement, insurance, supplemental pension, capital improvement, and reserve funds. These transfers are to support the expected expenses and maintain the recommended fund balances. For 2024, total revenues of $335.4 million against operating expenses of $293.6 million has a net value of $41.8 million. When adding the required transfers to other funds, the net value is $1.6 million. With a projected beginning balance of $22 million, the ending balance is budgeted at $23.6 million, maintaining the board's policy of a 1-month ending balance. If sales tax receipts are stronger than budget, we will review how much of the Revenue Stabilization Fund is needed to maintain the 1-month ending balance. The fiscal year 2024 capital improvement plan was approved by the Board of Trustees on May 23, 2023. The capital improvement plan provides for the purchase, maintenance, and improvement of the authority's capital assets through a programmed allocation of available financial resources. Are there any questions?
Do we have any questions from the committee or members of a whole? Yes, Mayor Wise.
You could just remind us what the Revenue Stabilization Fund, what's the current balance?
It's $130 million.
And maybe one other question. The replacement of the diesel buses, at what point are they fully all swapped out?
It should be about 2027, around 2027.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional? If there are no other questions, do I have a motion to suspend the committee meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? We're now going to suspend the committee meeting and open this up for a public hearing. We're going to have the second public hearing with the proposed FY 2024 budget with Director Kesatula again in the Office of Management and Budget.
Good morning. This is the second of 2 official public hearings on the proposed fiscal year 2024 budget for the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority. The information for the 2024 budget has been made available for public inspection at the Office of Management and Budget and on the authority's website, Facebook, and Twitter pages. Public notice of this hearing has been given by publication of legal advertisements in the Cleveland Plain Dealer and the Call and Post on October 26th and October 29th, as well as by posting of notice in the first floor lobby of the authority's main office building, the authority's website, Facebook, and Twitter page. The proposed 2024 budget was presented to the Operational Planning and Infrastructure Committee of the RTA Board of Trustees on November 14th. A second presentation was made to the Operational Planning and Infrastructure Committee on December 5th. The proposed budget estimates revenues at $335.4 million. The 2 largest sources of revenue are sales and use tax, budgeted at $268.3 million, and passenger fares at $27.1 million. Reimbursed expenditures includes reimbursements for preventive maintenance, force account labor, fuel tax, and other miscellaneous reimbursements. For 2024, reimbursed expenditures are budgeted at $5 million, of which $1 million is for preventive maintenance. The formula funds normally used for PM reimbursement will be used for unfunded or underfunded capital projects. Total expenditures for the proposed 2024 budget are $333.8 million, which includes $293.6 million for operating expenditures and $40.2 million for transfers to other funds to support expenses and maintain the recommended fund balances for the bond retirement, insurance, supplemental pension, capital improvement, and reserve funds. The 2024 through 2028 Capital Improvement Plan was adopted by the Board of Trustees on May 16, 2023. The CIP provides for the purchase, maintenance, and improvement of the authority's capital assets through a programmed allocation of available financial resources. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now open it up for public comment.
Do we have anybody in the audience that will make a statement, that want to make a statement? Anybody online?
There are currently no calls in the queue.
Okay, we have no calls online and no comments on the web form at this time.
Thank you. We will continue with the presentation of the public hearing from Director Satula. Thank you.
Do we need to go back into?
Yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. Thank you so much for that. So do I have a motion to reconvene the committee meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have a motion to reconvene the committee meeting.
Staff requests that the Operational Planning and Infrastructure Committee recommend the 2024 budget to the full board for approval.
Any comments, questions, concerns from? Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Do we need a roll call?
We just need a second.
Okay. So we have a second from here.
Okay, you made the motion.
Jeff made the
Oh, I didn't hear, I'm sorry.
Director, yeah.
If you would like a roll call.
I don't need to do it. No,
And ask
it's
all in
okay.
favor, any opposed?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We now will move this forward to the full board. Do I have a motion to adjourn
Correct.
the Operational Planning and Infrastructure meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. This is adjourned.
I would like to call to order the RTA Audit, Safety, Compliance, and Real Estate Committee. Roll call, please.
Mayor Kumar,
Here.
Ms. Mersman,
Here.
Mr. Sleesman,
Here.
and Mayor Weiss.
Here.
You have 4 committee members present. You have a quorum.
Great. The first agenda item we have today is the insurance program, and Judy Lincoln, Director of Risk Management, will be presenting.
Good morning, Chairman Kumar, committee members, and members of the board. My name is Judy Lincoln. I'm the Director of Risk Management here at RTA, and I'm here to give you a brief presentation on our property insurance renewal, which will take place January 1st, 2024. Before I get into the presentation, however, I was asked by Mayor Kumar to give you a short summary of the process that we use to get to this stage where we are obtaining proposals for our property renewal. So if I can, briefly, the first thing we need is a property insurance broker. Property insurance brokers, all insurance brokers, are used to approach the actual insurance companies and obtain quotations for a client such as RTA. So that is a competitive solicitation process. We conducted a full RFP process last year in 2022. There's an evaluation panel, evaluation criteria, proposals are submitted, interviews are conducted. Last August, we brought a recommendation to this board to retain Aon Insurance Services as our property insurance broker, and it passed. So Aon is our property insurance broker. They put together an underwriting submission in conjunction with RTA staff that contains a wealth of information on RTA's property insurance program, all of our properties, descriptions thereof, loss experience, most importantly, total insured values, which have to be indexed up for inflation. So my boss asked me to make sure and make the point that right off the bat, your values never go down. Your values always go up. So even if your rate remains stable, you're always looking at an increase. So when you see the final premium numbers and the rate increases, know that there's a factor in there where we index up our values as well. Last year, that was very extreme in the double digits. This year, happily, we were down to about 5 or 6% that we had to index up our values, so that was better. Aon went out to the market with an underwriting submission, and I'm going to present to you the results of this. I also have on the line Ray Battle, a Senior Vice President with Aon. Ray, you there?
I'm here.
I'm here. Who is our property insurance broker. And I am going to turn it over to him just for a minute, a little bit later in the presentation. But so is that a good enough introduction? Okay. So we will launch into the presentation. So a little description of the property insurance program itself. We do carry an all-risk property insurance program that covers perils such as wind, fire, flood, and collapse, to name a few. It is replacement cost coverage. So we collect, if we have a claim, the replacement cost of what that building would cost to rebuild today, which is why we have to make sure they're indexed up satisfactorily for the insurance companies, because they know they'll have to pay today's prices. So that's why the index factors are so important. Protects all real and personal property for which RTA is responsible. That includes our bus garages, the rail complex, all of our rail stations, as well as the rail and bus fleet. The bus fleet is insured for non-collision perils only. Our incumbent insurance carriers are Liberty Mutual and Evanston. They are two programs, and the total insured value is $1.9 billion. The first program is written by Liberty Mutual and is for the coverage of all RTA real and personal property, including the rolling stock when it is garaged at our locations. The blanket limit for that program is $500 million per occurrence. The deductible is $250,000 per occurrence. The second program is a standalone rolling stock policy written by Evanston and specifically provides coverage for the RTA rolling stock when it is rolling, both the rail and bus fleets. That is the difficult coverage to obtain. That's why it's written in a separate program. Very few carriers will entertain the rolling stock exposure. So the blanket limit for that program is $25 million per occurrence, and the deductible is $500,000 per occurrence. Last year, in 2022, we were facing hard market conditions and rate increases due to significant increases in treaty reinsurance costs for all insurance companies. That increase in cost was a result of severe loss experience throughout the industry. In addition, as I've already mentioned, property valuations were a key concern due to inflationary pressures and undervaluation of reported values in the industry. Those two factors combined resulted in a final premium increase of approximately 12% last year. Our expiring premium is $1,332,137. And moving on to this year, to give some perspective on the property insurance market this year. In the first quarter, we were given averages of 13.9% rate increases across the country. In the second quarter, that had increased to 25.5%, due mainly to Florida windstorms and hurricanes, as well as severe convective storms throughout the country. The third quarter report has reduced that figure to an average rate increase nationally of about 13%, so there has been some market improvement. Our partnership with Liberty Mutual and Markel is the parent group for Evanston, by the way, has provided a consistent foundation over the last 3 years as our insurance carriers. However, to assure that we do have a competitive program, we do approach other insurance carriers. And as I mentioned, there's a limited number of markets that will write rolling stock, but I did want to turn it over to Ray Battle for a moment to speak about our marketing efforts, just so the board could hear that. Ray, if you wouldn't mind.
Thanks, Judy. As your insurance broker, and I am very helpful and happy to be chosen as your property insurance broker, we approach several markets for your trying to solicit alternative quotes on your behalf. We do it on this renewal cycle. Simply starts 45 days, 90 days before the renewal. And we are talking with these markets about providing alternative quotes. As Judy's mentioned, it's a very tough market in general, and a tougher market when you are approaching specific for your unique risk. Now, those unique risks, as Judy said, is not only the property physical structures, but the rolling stock. We don't limit it just to the the renewal timeframe, we also talk with different markets throughout the year to make sure we understand if a market is changing, appetite's changing. So when we get together at the renewal, we have solicited your account to multiple carriers, and at this point, Liberty and Markel provide the most competitive pricing to the market.
Can you give an idea of how many other markets you approached, Ray?
Approximately 15.
Okay. Did I interrupt you? Were you going to say anything else?
Yep, I was just going to do a brief statement on from a benchmarking standpoint. We look at your rates and the terms and conditions of your programs, and we compare those to other programs that Aon is involved with throughout the country, and that we can confirm based upon those rates that the rate that GCRTA has for their program is competitive to other programs. Other programs' rates range from 4 to around 13 cents per $100 of values. GCRTA's property rates are around 5 cents. Different terms and conditions apply to those other programs, which again gives me the confidence that says that your rates, your terms and conditions for your exposure is competitive with your peers within the marketplace.
Okay. I appreciate that. Okay. Any questions on what Ray just summarized? No. So moving on, as of December 1st, last Friday, we were able to receive firm renewal quotations via Aon from our two incumbent markets, Liberty and Evanston, and as Ray mentioned, they have turned out to be the most competitive. Liberty quoted a 13% rate increase, and Markel quoted a 2.3% rate increase. After applying these rates against our updated total insured values, the resulting estimated renewal premium is $1,493,509. And that figure represents an increase of approximately 12% over the expiring premium. Again, recall that this 12% increase in premium encompasses both the rate and insured value increases after adjustment for inflation. So the new premium is $159,491, below the budgeted amount of $1.653 million. And Aon is continuing to negotiate for a possible cost improvement in the Liberty Mutual program. However, they are comfortable with the premiums included here to be contained in a resolution to be brought to the board on December 19th as a not-to-exceed amount. Therefore, we will be bringing final renewal results summarized in that resolution containing our recommendations to be brought to the board at that December 19th, 23 meeting for your approval. And are there any questions?
Questions from the board or the committee?
Could you share an example of the type of incident that might be included for a vehicle that is rolling, that is a non-collision incident?
Fire. We've actually had several bus fire claims over the course of the years. Air brake failures. It has to be a pretty bad fire to get above our $250,000 deductible. And that's on the non-rolling side. As the market has become more difficult, we used to have a $250,000 deductible across the board with FM Global, who we were with for many, many, many years. But now in this marketplace, we have the split program and the higher deductible on the rolling stock side. So today, some of those bus fire claims that we had would be beneath our deductible. We wouldn't even have a claim. But those are the only kind we've ever had since I've been here, knock on wood. I mean, well, I take that back. We had the Shaker Rail collision. We did have the Shaker Rail collision a couple of years ago. So we did have one rail rolling claim.
And that counts under this rather than the collision insurance that we may have.
Rail is covered for collision.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Under this program, yes.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to move this to the Committee of the Whole on the 19th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move it to the
Thank
full
you
board.
very
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Let the record continue to show we have the best insurance lady in the world.
Thank you so much, Reverend Lucas.
If I may, before we break, Judy, if you could introduce Wayne, please.
Oh, absolutely. This is Wayne Colonna, who is my senior risk analyst, who is the master of the property insurance program planning and work. So he deserves kudos for our good results.
Thank you both. Okay, the next item we have is a safety update presentation on the 2024 Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. And we have Steve Paganoff, Director of Safety. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Mayor Kumar, members of the committee and members of the board. Again, my name is Steve Paganoff, Director of Safety, and I'm here to present on the GCRTA 2024 Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, our PTASP. A little bit of history. It all started with MAP 21, the Moving Ahead for Progress in the 21st Century, which is a transportation authorization bill that was signed by President Obama. And this authorization granted FTA authority to establish a new structure to oversee safety on public transportation. So that kind of evolved into a final rule authorized in 2019 and became Part 49 CFR 673. The National Safety Transportation Plan is our framework for our PTASP, and we spent 2019 developing our first plan, which was implemented in early 2020, and this will be version 5 in 2024 for GCRTA. The PTASP is required of all rail and large bus agencies, and the plans are meant to be flexible and scalable to the individual agencies based on size, resources, and effectiveness. Our plan contains our hazard reporting and tracking system, whereby employees can report substandard conditions or practices to us in numerous ways and in a non-punitive way. It includes the required performance targets, again from the National Transportation Plan, as well as describing our safety training and methods of safety promotion. So here's a quick flow chart regarding our update and implementation process. It all starts with the Labor Management Safety Committee, which was new for 2023, as well as our Executive Safety Committee, both working together to monitor safety performance with input from the Joint District Safety Committees at the local level, which are composed of union and RTA management and supervision. From there, the Labor Management Safety Committee drafts the update to the future plan and obtains agreement through signature with the ATU as well as GCRTA leadership on that committee. Our next step is to present to the Safety Audit, Safety Compliance, and Real Estate Committee for Board of Trustees approval, and then move on to, after obtaining that board approval, submitting the plan to ODOT for their approval. Once that approval is obtained, then we would implement the updated plan, again, through the Executive Safety Committee and the local district safety committees, and move to the top of the flow chart and start over again. So the process is very systematic, like our PTASP. It meets the requirements of the bipartisan infrastructure law, and it works really well for us. So there are two key updates for the 2024 plan. First is regarding our safety and security certification process. We added language that cross-references FTA's 10-step procedure and that we follow FTA's handbook for transit safety. The second, we added more advice and guidance on the 2-hour notification rule when we experience a reportable safety event. I'd like to take you through our performance targets, which again are required by the National Transportation Safety Plan, the first of which are fatalities. The definition is death, excluding that resulting from illness or other natural causes and criminal homicides that are not related to collisions with a rail transit vehicle. It includes suicides on rail property, which is always a real risk for GCRTA. So we haven't had any. Our actual is 0, and our plan for next year is to have no more than 1. Our next target is that in the area of rail reportable injuries. We've had 3 this year. We had a fall on the stairs at West Boulevard Cadell. We experienced a fall from the platform to track level at Triscuit. Investigations of both those incidents revealed that there were no substandard conditions that led to those falls. And then we had a third whereby a young lady was running for the light rail vehicle at Warrensville Shaker. She fell on the sidewalk while running. The sidewalk was cracked, and facilities maintenance responded quickly, cordoned off the sidewalk until they could make the repairs, which are complete now. And our target for next year is to have no more than 2 of these type of incidents. So our next target is in the area of rail safety events. Rail safety events are reportable accidents, incidents, or occurrences. Examples include grade crossing collisions, evacuations due to life safety, and derailments. So far this year, we've had 16. Our target next year is no more than 18. As our trains continue to age, we do anticipate more defects that could lead to smoke generation, which causes passenger evacuations and notification to both ODOT and FTA. An example would be the motors that we were having problems with in the heavy rail cars, and that led to the overhaul project, which is nearly complete and has mitigated that root cause moving forward, as you can see from the graph. For context, in 2021, we had a total of 29 reportable safety events, 21 of which were these motor smoke-related incidents. So I do want to thank the board for their approval and buy-in of the need for that project, because it's really paid off quite a bit. Our next is the preventable collision rate. Through October, we've moved more than 18.7 million miles. Through that time period, we're at 1.52 on our collision rate, and our target for 2024 is to have no more than 1.40 collisions per 100,000 miles. Next is the occupational injury rate goal, or target. We've worked more than 3 million hours thus far in 2023. We're doing really well on this with a current injury rate of 4.69, and our target for 2024 is to have no more than 6.75 injuries per 200,000 hours worked. Our last 2 performance targets are in the category of miles between service interruptions. That's defined as the mean distance between major mechanical failures. Examples of those mechanical failures include brakes, motor issues, door problems, axle issues, and suspension problems. Our actual for 2023 is 2,530 miles on light rail, 8,567 miles on heavy, and our goal is to improve those numbers to 4,000 miles between service interruptions on light rail and 11,800 miles on heavy rail. So with that, staff requests the Audit, Safety, Compliance, and Real Estate Committee to recommend the 2024 Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan to the Board of Trustees for approval. Questions?
Thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions from the committee or the board? Yes.
Thank you for the presentation.
Sure.
There were some targets where the goals or the targets for the upcoming year are less stringent than our actual metrics this year. Could you explain the thought process around that? I think fatalities and some of the injury metrics are in that category.
Yeah, sure. So there are seven targets. Rail fatalities, we've had an experience of 0 for a number of years now. And because the risk remains for the suicide type of incident, we express our target to be no more than 1. We certainly don't want any, but it's still a real exposure for us, and it's very hard to put plans in place that would prevent that. So, is there another area that you wanted to discuss? Another target?
If you wouldn't mind flipping back to previous slides, that would help
sure.
to identify the list. So the occupational injury would be another one where the rate in 2024 that we're targeting is higher than the actual for 23.
Our target for 2023 is 6.82, and we're doing really well, and so we want to lower that target for 2024 to try to improve on meeting that metrics.
Okay, thank you. So basically, some of the 2024 targets show increasing improvement above the 23 targets, but not necessarily the 23 actuals.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
And do we do any calibration between the current year's actuals and the future year's targets?
Yeah, I would go back to the flow chart and reiterate that executive safety, as well as the new Labor Management Safety Committee, are always monitoring our safety performance. We're doing routine presentations on collision rates, OJI rates, miles between service interruptions, so that everybody's aware of everything that's going on at least a monthly basis. And with each presentation, there are efforts and corrective actions in place to try to continually improve and bring those rates down, if that's the desired direction.
Thank you. My final question is there any downside to having a more ambitious target in the future year that we may not meet with actuals? So, for example, we look at actual injury rate in 23, we see 4.7 rounded, and we say we want to continue to improve on what we achieved this year. Maybe a target for next year would be 4.25. But that gives us less room for not reaching it, right?
And so I would say that our hazard tracking and reporting system is called a smart log. And we borrowed that term from HR. It's specific, measurable, achievable, and realistic, as well as time-bound. And when we go to set the targets, we try to stay in the arena of achievable and realistic, because we don't want to set a goal that is such a stretch that we may not be able to get there. We want to keep it real.
Okay, thank you.
If I could follow up.
You're welcome.
One
Yes,
question,
Mayor.
and you may have covered it with Ms. Mersman's questions earlier, but maybe said a different way. Are there any goals for 2024 that increase the goal from 2023? Or are they all at least the same or less than 2023?
No, I'll take you back to preventable collisions. Our goal for 2023 was 1.40. We're probably not going to hit it, and so we want to try to hit it next year. That was our reason for maintaining that, but not making it any easier.
But nothing went up.
Nothing went up.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Very briefly, I don't want to hold up either this meeting or this document with this. So to that extent, I don't think there necessarily needs to be any change, at least for this year. And if any of the references to accident are for compliance or like legally defined terms, ignore that for this. But if I just want to make sure that within this, we don't refer to accidents, meaning crashes or collisions, because not every accident is a crash or collision, and not every crash or collision is an accident. So it's kind of it's more of a messaging or principles thing. So don't hold this up for that. But as we review this in subsequent years, I would like to make sure that we don't refer to the colloquial accident as meaning crash or collision.
Right, and I think you'll find that in some of our titles. But in philosophy, we like to use the word incident, and that's why one of the targets is rail events, not necessarily an accident.
Gotcha.
We totally agree.
Anything else? I'd like to make a motion that we refer the 2024 Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan to the full board. Is there a second?
Second, Welch.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll move that up.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned. I'd like to call to order the RTA Committee of the Whole. Roll call, please, Teresa.
Okay. President Lucas, Mayor Kumar,
Here.
Mayor Biassiata, Mr. Love, Ms. McPherson, Ms. Mersman,
Here.
Mr. Sleesman,
Yep.
Mayor Weiss,
Here.
and Ms. Welch.
Here.
You have 6 committee members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. The first item we have up is a code book update, and as we've done in the past, Don Tarka, Associate Counsel, will provide us an overview and an update of the changes we're making. Good morning, Don.
Good morning. Mr. Kumar and members of the board, I am here to present this morning on the proposed revisions to the code book. By way of background, the board's policies were codified in 1989. We're doing a comprehensive review to bring all of those provisions up to date with current operations, and they're subject to review and revision every 3 years. We have 2 provisions that we're going to discuss today, and the red lines of both of those provisions were included in the board packet with the committee memo. The first one is definitions and interpretation. These are basically the rules of construction for the entire code book. In Chapter 212 is where those definitions and interpretations are located. Back in 2015, in resolution number 2015-100, we changed the title of the code book. It used to be called the Policies and Procedures of the Board of Trustees of the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority. And we decided that a more concise and clear title would be the Codified Rules and Regulations of the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority. And what we're proposing to do now is simply to update that title in all of Chapter 212. The second provision that we're discussing today relates to financial assistance, particularly requests for grant funding from the federal government, the state government, and grants that are administered by NOACA. Those provisions are located in Chapter 465, which provides the general manager authority to apply for and submit documentation and additional information that might be requested for federal, state, and NOACA administered grants. The practice that we've undertaken for years now is that every year staff brings a resolution to the board for authority to apply for state grants, which duplicates the authority that's already in the code book. Similarly, we bring a resolution for NOACA administrative grants, I believe, every 3 years. So the purpose of these revisions is to streamline that process. We confirmed with ODOT that the language in the code book, as we amended it, provides sufficient authority for supporting our grant applications without the need to come to the board for a separate resolution. So we don't need to have that level of redundancy. Similarly, we reached out to NOACA, obtained their input on our proposed language, and again, NOACA has approved our ability to use the language that's in the proposed updates to the code book in support of our applications for grants administered by NOACA. So that's the reasoning for the proposed revisions. And the other key revision in that section is that we're proposing to update the general manager's title to the current title. We're removing the reference to Secretary-Treasurer. Staff requests that the Committee of the Whole recommend these provisions to the Board of Trustees for approval.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Comments from the board? Questions? Is there a motion to refer this to the full board?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then I guess the last item we have is executive session has been requested to review the negotiations concerning the compensation/terms and conditions of the employment for GCRTA's union employees and to enable the board to conference with GCRTA attorneys for information gathering, fact-finding, and to receive legal advice. Is there such a motion?
Motion Welch.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Okay. President Lucas had to leave. Mayor Kumar?
Yes.
Mayor Biassiatti had to leave. Mr. Love is absent. Ms. Deidre, Mr. McPherson? Ms. Mersman?
Yes.
Mr. Sleesman?
Yes.
Mayor Weiss?
Yes.
And Ms. Welch?
Here.
Okay, you have 6 ayes and none opposed.
Great. We'll be going into the executive session. I'll ask the CEO for members that she would wish to retain for that session. And looking at the agenda, pardon me?